Hi, my name is Patrick Burke, and this is the second video log for the Global Learning Project in TE150. For this second video, we were supposed to have the intercultural person helping us with our project become the host and invite us to do something in their culture. Unfortunately, Shrikant and I couldn't find a time to get together and do this second interaction, so Soren and I were the only ones that did it this time. But he came up with an idea for us to create like a simulation of his culture at home, and that's what we did for the second interaction, and I found it rather enjoyable. To kind of set the stage, I went down to his dorm room and we basically just lived a day like he would at home. He called his parents and they spoke in their native language of Farsi, and then I got to listen to that, and we talked about what kind of meal he would have eaten, the kind of things they would have done, and it was a really interesting experience. When I first got there, we went in and we had to take our shoes off because they do that in their home, which isn't that uncommon of a practice, but I don't do it in my culture, and he said that it's like culturally accepted for him to do there. Then I listened to his parents, like I said, and when we talked about food, he said that a big dish that they have, like a Persian Iranian dish, would be like a kebab, for example, usually served with rice or bread. My feelings on it before the interaction, I was really excited to do it because he came up with it like all on his own, and it really intrigued me that he was like willing to jump head first into this project and help me out with it. I found that very exciting. During the interaction, especially with the language, it felt like I was in a foreign country. For example, I went to Brazil this summer, and when I listened to them speak in Portuguese, at first I was like intrigued by the other cultures around me and just trying to figure out what they were saying. But as I went, I just realized that it's so different from anything that I know. I couldn't even begin to understand what was going on and what they were saying. And that's exactly how I felt when I was listening to them speak in Farsi. At first I was intrigued and I was trying to figure out what was going on and what was being said, but as I kept listening, I just couldn't understand what they were saying, but it was still very interesting to listen to. He also said that they're all fluent in English as well, which is really cool to me. They know both languages, and he also said that along with that, they just kind of try to integrate their Iranian culture and their American culture together. They seem to be bicultural that way. They can code switch fairly easily. When he was telling me about the food, that was just another example of that. Like, he would eat some American dishes in the home, but a lot of Iranian dishes as well, and he just seemed to be telling me how they integrate both cultures fairly easily into the home. So that was during the experience how I felt. It was very interesting. After the experience, I was really glad that I was able to actually partake in it fully, and he was as involved in it as I was. Like in the first experience, I felt more involved, but in this scenario where he invited me into the culture, I just felt extremely involved, and I feel like he was involved as well, showing me what his culture really was in his home life. And that was the other cool thing that I thought was nice about this interaction, is I wasn't seeing some big cultural practice, which would have also been interesting, but I was seeing just how he plays out his culture at home every day, with the little things like taking off the shoes, and just the casual conversation that he had with his mom over the phone. It wasn't some sort of like religious practice that I was witnessing. It was just an everyday cultural experience that he would have in his home life. Along with the Farsi that he was speaking with his mom, his native language, he taught me a few words such as like salam means hello and chatori means how are you, which those sound nothing like anything I've ever heard of, going back to the foreignness of it all, but it was very interesting, and especially at the beginning of their conversation, I was trying to figure out what they were saying, trying to use context clues, and I was just very engaged, and it was very interesting for me to witness. It seemed like a lot of their cultural practices with the food and the shoe taking off, for example, they were just different from what I've ever done, and being able to experience how someone else lives in their home versus how I live in my home was very cool for me to see. After the interaction was done, we expressed some more views of like how I live versus how he lives in the home, and just the differences were fun to analyze, I guess is a way to put it. Um, the interaction was very cool for me. I wish I could have done it with Shri Camp, but unfortunately, like I said, our schedules couldn't, like we couldn't find a day that we both were free, so we couldn't unfortunately do this one. But for the next interaction, I hope that we can find a time, and I also hope to continue to use Soren as well to keep learning about as many different cultures as I can. I like it and I find it very interesting.